everybody works together. We mark her seizures on the calendar so everybody is aware, since we maybe don't say, hey, she had a seizure this morning. We'll just put it on the calendar so everybody can look at the calendar and know what has happened recently. Yes, she's had one today or yesterday, and things like that. So we use the calendar quite a bit. It also helps me to give that information to the doctor's office, because I'm not always the one that's here that can see it and update on them on the number of seizures. So we just mark it on the calendar, and then otherwise don't probably usually physically say to another person, hey, she had a seizure this morning, unless there's a reason that we need to. Otherwise, the information's on the calendar and everybody kind of knows to just stop and look at that. We have teenage boys in the house that probably wouldn't tolerate the diet extremely well. We have decided the best way for us to do the diet. There's certain foods that are like go-to foods for Sierra that my husband can make, my sons can make in a pinch. So like tuna salad, chicken salad, those things. Those are the go-to meal if she's not able to have something that we are making for dinner that night. The way I generally do it, if we're having like a taco night, I will separate out a little bit of the taco meat for Sierra. I'll season hers separate so I can control the amount of seasoning that's put in it. And then I make her cauliflower rice, and then I continue to make the dinner. So I try to use parts of what we're having for dinner for her meals when possible. And if I can't figure out a way to take the meal that we're having and adapt it to her, or if we're having something that she physically wouldn't be able to eat, like she has, doesn't chew a lot. So if it's just not possible, then we switch to a go-to meal for her. So sometimes she's eyeballing our dinner and it's like, this just isn't something that, I can change for you, but she tolerates her foods very well. We've switched her from those favorite macaroni and cheeses to other favorites now. So we use those as kind of a fill-in, an emergency meal if I'm not able to adapt the dinner. But most of the times I'm able to adapt the meal enough so she has something similar to ours, whether it be pizza. I use 0-carb bread for the pizza crust, and then she has her own little personal slices of pizza while I make pizza for the rest of the family, things like that. So we try to keep it where she has as similar things as possible as the rest of the family, so she can still feel like she's having a family meal. But at times it's just not possible, and we fill in with other foods then. Pretty much every time we leave the house, we have a cooler with her with acceptable foods. If we go out to dinner, we try to find her something at the restaurant and choose restaurants that we know. At this point, after 2 years, we know certain places she can eat and certain places that she can't. So we try to pick places that we know has something that she's going to be able to have. But if not, we resort to the cooler. And we do the same thing for family events. My side of the family, generally, when we have like a holiday, everybody brings a dish. And there's a few people in the family that have learned what they can use, swapping out a type of mayonnaise, doing this differently. And so if they make something for everybody to share, they bring a little bowl of something very similar for Sierra, or something without the seasoning or the sauce that she can have. And it's so wonderful to see people do that for her. And then the other side is a little more distant relatives who aren't as familiar. And we've had some issues with, if I ask, has any sauce or seasoning or, any marinades, I'm told no, but then come to find out it did. So we're being very careful in those situations. And we just are using her cooler meal, unless we know for a fact that the food was basically prepared with her in mind. That we know we can't trust it, and we need to just have her eat something out of the cooler. Keep a calendar. That is an important one for us, especially when you're starting the diet, because they do want to know and how many seizures. So you can really kind of get a good impression of, are they really getting worse? Are they, are they lasting a shorter period of time? So like we mark on our calendar the day of the seizures, what time of day it was and how long it lasted, and anything that might be particular about that seizure that made it different, or that's something that we noticed, or even if the day before we felt like we didn't get her a very good amount of fat, like did that possibly play a factor? We mark all of that stuff on the calendar. So that way, when we go back to the doctor and we're looking at whether how the diet affected her in the last 6 months, we have all that information right there at our fingertips to relate to the doctor. And that has helped so much. And then as far as her foods, just trying to find a way that the dinner that you are making can work for that person. What can you pull out away from that dinner and change up a little bit to make it work? Because when you're cooking for multiple people, you really need to try to make things as simple as possible. And that is one thing that we try to do, is to pull bits of the dinner that we're having that I can modify in a way to work with her and her diet. And those things have helped considerably. Right off the bat, I bought a lot of things that just weren't necessary. And looking back now, I realize I should have started more simple, naturally low carb foods, things like eggs. Let's start there. I don't need to go buy some expensive mix because it says keto on it. I don't need to come up with all these recipes to replace a bunch of baked goods. I need to just start simple with the foods that are just naturally low carb, and figure out what you can make from those foods, and then add some of the other treats and things later. It doesn't all have to be done right off the bat. And I think we wasted a lot of money doing that right off the bat. I have things that I bought that we never really used, and I could do today completely without them. And I think that the easiest thing would be to just start very simple with naturally low carb items, and then add things from there as you go.